Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Brianna's Bachelor Breakdown. I'm Brianna, your Bachelorette relationship analyst. So today we're going to take a deep dive into week 2 of Michelle's season. We're going to get into everything that happened with Jamie, from his one-on-one date to all the drama that he instigated in the house. We're also going to go over Peter and Will and their whole shenanigans, as well as highlight a few of the guys that I think are starting to make a genuine connection with Michelle thus far. So let's go ahead and get started. Don't forget to like and subscribe this video if you want more content diving deep into the relationships of the Bachelorette. So, as always, I will have timestamps in the description, so feel free to skip around to where you want. I'm going to go ahead and start us off with my new tradition, the best tweet of the night. So, here I have, it says, you watched The Bachelorette. Surprising, but I'm not judging. It's cute, actually. You watch the show because it humors you. Do you enjoy watching people's hearts break? Are you a heartbreaker? Will you break my heart? Don't worry. I can fix you. And I just love this tweet because, it doesn't really have much to do with The Bachelorette or anything that happened last night, but I really like it because I'm obviously a fan of the show You, and I just love that little crossover moment in my timeline when I was scrolling through the hashtag of The Bachelorette. I totally 100% could see Joe saying something like that. And I feel like, honestly, Joe stalking whatever girl has his attention at the moment, stalking them while watching The Bachelorette with her friends would give Joe so much intel, right? Because that would allow him to see what her type is and make sure that he can keep her away from any guy that might seem like her type. It would also, if she's watching it with her friends, it would allow him to see her friend group dynamic. They'd be having a little girls' night, drinking wine probably, so Joe would be all over that so he could know which friend to take down, which friend would be a threat to his relationship with this object of his desire. So I could see Joe being all over that. But I digress. I thought that was really funny. So I'm going to start us off with the one-on-one with Jamie. Now, I feel like his one-on-one, or the story framing his one-on-one and his storyline in the whole show, I feel like it really started the night before his date when he got the date card. Because he gets the date card, and obviously the normal reaction of anyone is like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, can't wait to get to know the lead more, done. But Jamie's over here, and he's like, oh, I can't wait to see if she's the person for me, because I'm so ready to leave if she's not. And to me, I feel like it was one of those things where, yes, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, it's not always painted as a two-way street because so much attention is focused on the lead, and it's really their journey, and they really have all the power and control in determining who they want to end up with. And so I feel like, we don't really get a lot of perspective of that other side of what it's like to be on the other side, to be a contestant, and to also be on your own journey for love. And so I feel like that's a valid perspective, but at the same time, I feel like voicing it in that moment when you're being given that attention that so many, literally every other guy there would want, I feel like it's one of those things that, you think in your head, it's a fine thought to have, but, you don't say it out loud. I feel like it wasn't enough thinking before speaking is the vibe that I was getting. I feel like he really just could have kept that comment wrapped up to himself. But he didn't. And even just the way that he said it was very braggadocious, humble brag, because he was like, I have to see if Michelle can handle my lifestyle because I go to third world countries at the drop of the hat. What does that mean, Jamie? I went back and I looked at his, job description on the ABC website because I was like, is it me? Am I missing something? Does he have this, super exciting career that I just really didn't read his tagline? All it says is biotech CEO. So that honestly raises more questions than it answers. I don't quite know what that means. I understand the industry, I guess, but it's not clear to me what actions he's taking, what sort of business he seems to be in charge of, what they're doing in these third world countries. Like, it's just not adding up. And I feel like he was just saying that to kind of garner more interest around him and kind of elevate his status in a sense, to be like, oh, well, Michelle has to get to my level before I will even consider being with her. And it's just like, again, it's one of those things, like, of course you want to vet out who you two will be potentially ending up with, but there's just a better way to say it, or to really just not say it at all, especially when you just got the one-on-one date card. Anyway, they meet up the next day, they go on their date. Michelle's outfit, I had mixed feelings about it. It was very blinding, I might say. It was very, the color of a highlighter. And I will just say, before I go any further, I'm someone clear, as you might be able to tell, I like neutrals, I like muted colors, earth tones. So for me, a very bright neon color is very overwhelming. I don't really know, my eyes don't really know how to process that much color at once in front of me. So I'm not saying that she looked bad or that it was a bad color on her. It was just a lot for me to handle on my screen. But the actual outfit itself was really cute. I'm a huge fan of two-piece like outfits. I know the two-piece athleisure vibe is really trendy, really in right now. Along with like the biker shorts. I know those are kind of been coming back for the past few years. So I liked the look overall. I think the color did look good on her. It was just, like I said, it was a lot for me to take in, but I feel like it was still overall a good choice. So anyway, they go into their date, they're rock climbing. It was fun. It was cute. You know, Jamie, he was kind of taking the lead to coach her and telling her where to kind of put her hand and put her feet and everything. And it seemed like they had a good time. It seemed like he was genuinely like helpful and bringing a positive vibe and energy to something that seemed like both of them didn't have much experience in, which is something that you want in a life partner. You want someone who you can try new things with, and they're always up for the challenge, and they're even trying to, you know, make sure that you have a good experience as well. So I really liked their date. They had their little picnic at the top of the cliff, I guess. And that was cute. I mean, they like chatted. I wasn't really paying attention because they didn't say anything of substance. But overall, they had a good time. So then they went out to dinner. Again, we got to pause for Michelle's fit. Another two-piece. Like I said, I like the two-piece. This one was more of like a midi look. I really like that, you know, form-fitting. I feel like that's a very, I don't want to say timeless because it's not like something like, that makes it sound more aged than it is, but I feel like it's a style that can work for a lot of different occasions. It can obviously work for a more formal outing, as well as it can be something more casual that you can wear to like a casual gathering, or even running around town to meet up with friends or go to brunch. Like, there's so many different ways that you can wear this type of like fit or this cut of clothes. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. The color again, and I mean, you would think, I just said I like neutrals, I like muted tones, and this one was very tan and bland, but I felt like it went too much on the other side. I felt like the color just didn't really pop for me. I felt like it could have been a deeper shade of like tan. Like, I don't know. It was lacking something for me. And then when the camera like zoomed in, you could see that there were a lot of different, different designs and like stitching detail on the fabric. And I don't know if this is going to make sense, but I felt like it took away the formal or the potential of the formal vibe for me. Like, I felt like the stitching almost made it a little bit more of a casual outfit. I don't really know where that impression comes from, but that's just what I thought when I was looking at it. But overall, again, Michelle looked good as always, so I was here for it. Overall, it just, the little details I felt like could have been improved upon. So then when we're at dinner with Jamie and Michelle, Jamie kind of opens up about his family history. He tells us about, you know, his childhood, that it sounds like through elementary school, he had a good childhood. You know, he was doing really well in school, loving life. And then as he moved into a more middle school age range, his mother started struggling with suicidal ideation. And that really, it took a toll on her mental health, which in turn led to financial struggles for the family. They had to move back in with grandma. And it was just a lot for him. It sounded as though he had to kind of take on the role of the parent in a sense, because he started talking about how he had to miss a lot of days of school. It sounded like when he was in middle and high school, like he would only be going to classes like just for the attendance, pretty much. Like his mind was always elsewhere. He was always worried about his mom and having to, you know, carry that such a large responsibility of essentially playing the role of a parent as well as caring for himself as a growing teenager. He wasn't able to focus on his studies as much as it sounded like he would have liked to, or as much as he was able to when he was younger. So ultimately, when Jamie was 24 years old, his mom did die by suicide, and now he is 32 years old, so it's been 8 years. And he did admit that it was very hard for him to find the motivation to continue on and find a reason to, you know, find any sort of joy or happiness in life after his mom passed away. But it sounds as though he also has gone through processing everything. He's on a healing journey. Like, it sounds like he's in a good place about things now. Of course, I'm sure it'll always be something that is not something he looks back fondly upon, but it sounds as though he's gathered the tools that he needs to move forward in a healthy and productive way. So he shares all this with Michelle. She, of course, is very moved and touched by this story. It brings her to tears. And then she says something along the lines of, hey, like, I don't really know you that well, but I'm so proud of just how you carry yourself, given everything that you've been through in your story. And then Jamie said something that was really interesting to me that I really enjoyed. He said, you know what, I'm so glad that you didn't hit me with, I'm sorry to hear that, I'm sorry for your loss, like, I wish that didn't happen for you. And this was one of those times where I just kind of like, I was actually really glad. Like, I feel like being able to have conversations like this and giving people the platform to share perspective like this, I feel like is one of the virtues or values that reality TV can provide. Because I feel like it's always seen as like this trashy kind of like extra genre of television that's not taken as seriously, but like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, The Bachelor franchise is like the biggest reality franchise in the country, and so they have a humongous platform, and I think to give people the opportunity to not only share that type of story, but as well give feedback about how to navigate those tough conversations, I think is really powerful. Because I think so many people just simply don't know how to navigate that. Not out of like trying to downplay it or not caring about what the person is sharing, but so many people would default to that, I'm so sorry for your loss, or they might hit you with a Matt James, like, thank you for sharing. And I just love that Jamie he didn't go too into depth. He didn't really go on a whole spiel, but he was just like, this is part of my story, and in order to love myself, I have to love every part of me. And I think that's so powerful. And I mean, I know at least it made an impact on me moving forward, because, you know, I now know this part of Jamie's story, but also in my own personal life, if I do encounter a situation in which a friend is telling me something like super impactful towards them that happened to them, I feel like that I will have a better understanding and more ways of navigating the conversation that I can rely on, other than just those like basic defaults that doesn't really truly honor the full value of what that person is trying to communicate with you. So yeah, The Bachelor, it got a little deep for a second. It does that from time to time. But overall they had a good, you know, date. Obviously he got the rose. They had a private concert. Whatever. So now we're going to fast forward to the cocktail party, where Mr. Jamie is chatting it up with the boys. You know, they're kind of discussing whether or not Michelle did in fact know Joe before this, and if so, if that puts Joe at an advantage. And Jamie's kind of the opinion that he's bothered by it. He thinks that it's clear they knew each other beforehand, and he feels slighted, it seems like. But then the other guys are kind of like, they're more of the opinion of like, you know what? If they know each other, they know each other. There's nothing I can do, so I'm not going to worry about it. At the end of the day, even if she does know him, like, yeah, that would suck, but, like, she's going to pick who she wants to pick, and there's nothing I can do to change that other than focus on developing my relationship with her, which I think is a very mature perspective. I feel like, overall, just in general, the cast of The Bachelorette seems to have been getting more mature, like, over time, progressively. I feel like the guys in The Bachelorette used to have, like, a lot of drama, a lot of pettiness. But I remember, like, Tayshia's season, their guys were very, like, they were all really cool with each other. Not that much drama. These guys, for the most part, seem cool with each other, like, able to process things that might be problematic, but not make a big deal out of it. So, I'm really here for it. I like it. But anyway, though, that's pretty much the consensus of the house, minus Jamie. Of course, Jamie takes it upon himself to go to Michelle, and of course, he's like, oh, let me tell you, girl, everyone else, except for me, not me, everyone else is feeling the type of way about you potentially knowing Joe beforehand. And let me just say, y'all, I had a lot of issues with this conversation. I felt like, first of all, the way he was delivering this message, it really just rubbed me the wrong way. When he was speaking to her, he had like this smile on his face. Like he was like, yeah, so I heard from one of my friends, I saw you at a bar. Like he just had a smile on his face the whole time. And it always just like, it doesn't sit right with me when someone is trying to provide me with information that's like negative, or they're disappointed in me, or like just anything that doesn't require a smile and they're smiling. Like that's always sus to me. It makes me feel like they're trying to disarm me. Like it makes me feel like they want me to look at how they're saying it as opposed to what they're saying, and they want me to react to like, oh, like we're happy, we're having a good time because you're smiling at me. The impact of what they're saying is not going to hit me until they want it to. Like I feel like they're trying to control how I'm taking in the information by not providing me with all the facial cues and the body language necessary to get the full impact of their message until they're ready to like fully blindside me and spring it upon me. And then at that point, the impact of the message is that much more profound and causes a deeper emotional reaction from me. That's what I don't know if I'm reading into that too much, but that's just how I always feel whenever someone is delivering information in that manner. Additionally, his tone, it was, like I was saying earlier, it's very kind of like chipper, like happy, like it sounded like he was just like gossiping. I felt like it was mixed in with condescension because it sounded like he was saying like, oh, like, you poor thing, let me tell you about all these rumors going on. You probably don't even know how you looked that night. Like, let me go ahead and clear it up for you, girl. Here's my problem. He wasn't going in with the intention of figuring things out. It was accusatory without having that tone. But by going in with stating matter of fact, oh, my friend saw you with an unnamed companion, like, not even saying, like, is this true? Like, what do you think about that? Like, he gave her no room to kind of really provide her side of the story. He was just kind of like, this is what it is. You clearly don't know what you've been up to. Like, let me make sure you know what the narrative is. And let me make sure that everyone except for me, not me, to take my name out of this, everyone but me is feeling a way about you. I feel like it was very manipulative because, like I said, he, by being the one to come to her first, controlling how he's delivering the story, he's controlling the narrative and how she's receiving it. And when in reality, as we saw earlier, he's really the only one that we know of to our knowledge who feels the type of way. None of these other guys, like, it's no skin off their back. Like, they are just not pressed. They can acknowledge that, yeah, she might have known Joe, but, like, it's really not their problem. And Jamie coming in and spinning the tale a different way. It's kind of like when you lose something, like if, let's say you're living at home, you lose your mom's like purse or something like that. And then she comes out and she's like, I lost my purse, da 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 da, and then you go help her find it. You're helping her to look for it. It's kind of like by aligning yourself and putting yourself on the side of the person that you're trying to manipulate and have them not figure out like what's going on, like you are making yourself look like the good guy because you're already taking yourself out of the equation by controlling the narrative first, right? Like I feel like in Michelle's mind, she's like, oh, well, obviously I wouldn't think that Jamie's the one thinking these things because he told me he wasn't and no one else has spoken up. So the only story I had to go off is Jamie's, and I already feel this connection to him. I already trust him from our one-on-one. So why would I think anything different? Michelle comes out and she addresses the guy. She explains the whole situation. She does acknowledge, hey, yeah, like me and Joe, we've exchanged a few DMs. It honestly didn't go anywhere. So all of you guys, I was meeting for the first time night one. You're all starting off on an even playing field. And in terms of the whole, like, spotting me with a basketball player at the bar, club thing or whatever, she basically just boils it down to, you know, when you're black or a person of color in such a white state as Minnesota, if any of your peers, your white peers, see you out with someone else of your race or another person of color, they automatically assume that you're dating. But had she been out with someone who was white, they would not have that assumption. And let me just tell y'all, I loved, like, that is such a real thing. And I love The Bachelor, like, having Michelle as a Bachelorette and being able to speak to those experiences that are so real for a lot of people, but don't get any sort of that perspective. It never has the opportunity to get shared on this type of platform because people of color are not typically given access to the main character roles in this franchise or in reality TV in general, unless it's to make fun of them or to have them support someone else's story. Like, I feel like just in recent history, in recent years, in The Bachelor and Bachelorette are, like, black people and other people of color just now getting their main character moments and really having the opportunity to express what goes on in our communities and how we deal with the world. And like I said, that's such a real thing. I mean, I remember just kind of like growing up, people, like I have that experience of being one of the only black or people of color in whatever setting I was in, whether it be school, extracurriculars, like whatever. I'm very used to that type of like livelihood. And I can remember people being like, oh, like Brianna, you would look so good with such and such from our class, or like you guys would be so cute together, da 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 da. And then I look around and I'm like, oh, it's because this is the only black guy in our class. Like, and I don't really, I mean, I know where that comes from, but I think it's something that's so innocent. Like, I wouldn't even call it necessarily a microaggression because it's not necessarily saying anything rude. But I feel like if you peel back the layers a little bit, what's really being said is black women are seen as the most undesirable demographic, like, in the country. And it's very hard for white people to fathom that another white man, someone of their race, would be attracted to a black woman. I'm not saying, like, subconsciously, right? I'm not saying that this is a conscious thought that, like, every white person I encounter thinks, but I do think that it is a subconscious thought, because obviously, due to slavery and other racist histories of this country, those types of unions and partnerships are not something that we're used to or are not something that have ever been portrayed in a healthy light. Because if you did ever see, or I guess the origins of a white man being with a black woman in this country are with a slave master pretty much taking advantage of a black slave to produce light-skinned children for him. So that's that's the roots of where those types of relationships come from. So when it starts off like that, it's very hard to have it blossom into a healthy thought process of, wow, that's an actual dynamic of a couple that can exist and have a healthy relationship together. I don't really know where I was going with all that. I just say all that to say that I like that Michelle called that out and did it on this national primetime television moment and just let everyone know, like, y'all need to relax off of those type of assumptions. So anyway, Michelle says what she needs to say, but then none of the guys respond. And everyone's just kind of sitting there. There's crickets. No one's really engaging with her monologue. And I can only imagine what's going through Michelle's head right now, right? Because over here from Jamie, she's hearing, oh, everyone in the house is feeling away. like, everyone thinks this about you and Joe, da 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 da. And then when she gives everyone the opportunity to address it, she lays all her cards out on the table. No one's biting on the bait. And so in her mind, that makes everyone else look even more sus and makes Jamie look even more trustworthy, because now he's painted as the only one who will speak up and tell her what's really going on in the house, while everyone else is just supposedly feeling this way but not expressing it. So that bothered me even more. But then, if that weren't enough, Michelle goes off doing whatever she needs to do, and all the guys are just kind of a buzz, chattering about, like, who said this, where is this coming from, da da da. And then Jamie had the audacity to involve himself in conversations with some of these gentlemen and being like, oh yeah, I don't know who said that, y'all be easy though. Like, he's a snake. He's literally a snake in these people's midst. And I'm really excited to see how this all goes down, because looking back on it, I think, because Jamie did tell this story to one person. I think his name is Martin. He told this story to one of the guys after he had that kind of like small group huddle with some of the other guys. It was just him and another guy talking, and he told him the story about the bar and his friend and whatever. So I feel like that friend, that contestant, needs to tap into his memory box and say, oh wait, Jamie was the one who told me about his friend, and then that is the same story that Michelle just announced to us. Connect the dots and announce to everyone else that Jamie was the one who spread this rumor. So I'm really counting on Martin to kind of debunk all this. I don't really know if that's going to happen, but I also wouldn't be mad if Martin played his cards close to his chest and let the drama play out for my entertainment. So anyway, we're going to go back to the beginning of the episode, where we have the first group date. Some of Michelle's students come in to essentially play like smarter than a fifth grader, like have them do different activities that they would do in their daily classroom life. They have spelling, math, and chemistry, and then musical chairs. And the big storyline from this is Peter. Peter is acting very attention-seeking, like he's, every question that is asked, like every challenge or whatever, he always finds a way to like make it about himself and try to get Michelle's attention. Like at one point they had to spell entrepreneur, and he spelled that, and then he at the bottom drew like a pizza, and he was like, see me, like I'm a pizzaprenuer or whatever. And the students' reactions were so funny. Like they were not amused by him at all. He like drew the little pizza, and the girl was like, oh, I thought that was an ice cream cone with no ice cream in it. Like, kids are savage. Kids will tell you how it is. And they wasted no time with any of the guys, Peter included, / Peter aside. Just everyone could get the smoke. Like when every guy that got a question wrong, they were very quick. They wasted no time in telling you wrong. Like these kids, they were not having it. Or when a guy would complain, like I remember one guy, they were doing the math problem, and he was like, oh, I didn't have enough time to get the answer. And they're like, count faster. Like they were not having it whatsoever, and I was here for it. Eventually everything comes to a head with Peter when Will they had the prompt to spell narcissist, and Will writes Peter's name on his whiteboard. And of course, Peter has a fit, throws a tantrum to the cameras. And one thing that he said that stuck out to me was he was like, I can't believe he would do this. Like, this is going to ruin my progress with Michelle. But it's like, it shouldn't though. Like, if you're not exhibiting, and I'm not calling him a narcissist. Like, I'm not diagnosing him with a personality disorder. But I feel like if you're not exhibiting those traits of narcissism, then, and you know that for a fact, like, if you know in yourself, like, hey, I don't meet any of that criteria, then it should be a non-issue. And if you know that in your interactions with Michelle that you've been genuine, you've been, like, interesting person to interact with, then you should also have faith in yourself and confidence and trust in Michelle that she will see through that, and that'll only make Will look worse if you were really confident in your connection with her, and confident in yourself. I feel like his insecurities are really coming through, and I feel like that's why he's always, like, the loudest person in the room, because he usually, not always, but sometimes the people who are trying to take up the most space are the ones who are also the most insecure, because they just don't know how to kind of be confident in themselves and know that people will still be interested in getting to know them if they're not taking up all this space. So Peter and Will, they get into it at the cocktail party, after party, whatever. They're yelling at each other, and I don't know if I was the only person who noticed this, but it was a very weird vibe. Like, Will was not making eye contact with Peter when he was yelling. He was just kind of vaguely yelling in his direction and, like, looking outside of him, through him. Like, it was just a very weird interaction. And then Michelle, she pulls Peter. She never talked to Will, so I don't know. She just is not invested in him. But she pulls Peter and she's like, hey, I heard you yelling. And lets him know that that's not an effective way to communicate, and basically says, like, if you were to get mad at me and yell at me, we would have some issues, so I need you to get that under control before that seeps into our relationship. She didn't say those words exactly, but that is the message that I received. But she was very, like, gentle with Peter. Like, she didn't say this, it wasn't, like, disciplinary, it was just kind of like, hey, like, that's not cool. But she seemed very willing and open to continue to give him another chance, and kind of can understand, like, he probably was just caught up in the heat of the moment. So I never really thought Peter had much of a chance anyway. But I mean, I guess I'm glad he didn't get shut down by this. I don't really know or care. Some of the other guys that I felt like made a connection with Michelle this episode, obviously Joe, he's making a comeback. Michelle spent a lot of time talking about him in her confessionals, which I feel like is a good sign for him, because I feel like it's one thing to, like, have a cute little, like, chit chat with someone, like, out in the open, like, on camera or whatever, but then to use your interview time to reflect on that one-on-one time, I feel like speaks even more, because it shows that they made an impression on her. So she details us the whole story of the Minnesota basketball player 2011 title that they both, I mean, I guess she didn't get it, but they were both in the running for that title the same year. And just kind of tells us some more history that she knows about him. And after the basketball date at the after party, he's able to open up to her about his coach that just passed away, and I feel like that brought them closer. Of course, it's a sad moment, but I feel like only athletes can truly understand the impact that a coach can have on your life, and really understand what that loss would be like. So I'm glad that they were able to share that moment together. I don't really know where this is gonna go, but Rick, I feel like, is really trying to make a name for himself. And I thought his date was super thoughtful. Like, the little Mad Libs thing, I thought it was so cute, so fun. Like, you can tell he definitely put time and effort into that. Honestly, even though I kind of like Brandon, I felt as though Rick, just for that effort, should have gotten the group date rose. Just because that was, like, so fun. And then, of course, as I just mentioned, Brandon seems to be making a good impression so far. I love their little chit chat, because this man sat down and said the corniest thing ever, and Michelle, her reaction was so relatable. I would have said the same exact thing. He was like, oh, I want to wake up and dream of you, and, like, all this extra stuff, and she was like, are you good? And he was like, this is all from the heart, and she's like, is it? Like, I just felt like that was such a relatable response, and I like that he can laugh at himself. Like, I feel like sometimes guys who are, like, really deep into, like, trying to say, like, fake deep romantic things, like, get offended if you don't, like, eat it up. But I felt like Brandon, he was able to be like, you know what, like, that was kind of corny. It's funny. Whatever. So I like the vibe that they had going on. And then the last guy that stuck out to me was Rodney. When she gave him, like, the little apple taste testing date, that was super fun. I thought it was super cute. Unclear why he's not able to identify food flavors, especially pizza. That really offended me. But that stuck out to me because I don't feel like you often see the lead setting up dates for a contestant. So I felt like that was, like, really fun, and I like to see Michelle kind of, like, putting herself out there a little bit. So that's pretty much what I had. What did you guys think? What do you think is going to happen with Jamie? Who is your front runner right now? I feel like Joe's making some headway. Do you feel like Nayte has still got a top spot? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you back here next week for another episode of Brianna's Bachelor Breakdown.